And I'm literally fighting with myself in the parking lot, going, I don't have time to do this. I have to go to this interview. What am I doing here? And literally felt two hands pushing me to go forward. And 2 weeks later, I was sitting at the Cannes Film Festival selling movies to the international world. So it was like a new widget. I didn't know my widget was going to be film, but I was selling import, export, and importing movies. And last week was 35 years ago.
Hi, and welcome back to Old School. Today we're going to have in class as our teacher, Chevonne O'Shaughnessy. She is the co-founder and president of American Cinema Inspires. She's a Christian film industry producer, and today we talk about her entry into that industry as well as her faith journey. We talk about how she came to the point of producing, but also how you get into the various avenues, whether it be streaming or TV channels, the video market. She started in the 80s. She and I are kindred souls in the maturity level. So we have a great chat about those types of things and how the world at large kind of receives the Christian movie industry and the types of movies that they're looking for. We talked about the trends in Christian filmmaking as well, and how, for the most part, you feel a lot of it aimed at women from 25 to 45, romantic kind of stories, great family value kind of stories. But she said the new trend that she was seeing that she thought might be good and upcoming is Westerns, so that we can start to bring in male viewers and let them have movies where they're portrayed as manly men, as great role models and characters for men that came through history and through the Westerns and stuff. So I thought that sounded fascinating, and I know that people have received very well the prequels, if you will, to Yellowstone, that people seem to think those are awesome, and especially some of the actors who are in those that are bringing those great male characters to life. So we have a really good time talking about all of that, and I want to bring in today as your teacher, Chevonne O'Shaughnessy. Welcome to class. Okay, so basically what we do here at Old School is I was asked by the Lord to write a book a while ago, and my writing coaches told me that furthering my story would come about better with a podcast, with some speaking. And so what I try to do is bring stories that talk about both healing and journeys that have to do with the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, and how they kind of come together. So I like to start off by talking to folks about their story. And in particular, what I'd like to hear is your personal faith journey as it pertains to how you got up to the filmmaking industry in the first place.
Well, I would love to tell you my story. So it started a little while ago. So it starts back in the 80s, really. It started off with me living in Rome, thinking that's where my life was going to be. And I was married to an Italian. I had my daughter, she was like 2 years old. My father was nice enough to buy me my first apartment, and he bought my cars. And at the time in the 80s, he was giving me $8,000 a month net to live on.
Wow, in
And
the
I
80s.
just in the 80s, in the 80s. Yes, I was very excited and very nice of it. And I mean, I was only 27 years old, and I had just graduated from the American University with an
Okay, wait a
international
second.
business degree.
I'm 61, and a lot of people say I might not look my age. I'm not going to do the math here for our
I'm a
guests,
year
but
older.
huh?
I'm a year older.
Yeah, and so that is just so amazing. You look fabulous. I would have not even
Thank
guessed that. I'm like, you started when
you.
you were 13?
Thank
I'm sorry to
you.
interrupt, but you just look fabulous, just to say.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So I finished my school later because I had gotten married, and then I finally finished it. And 2 weeks, I think it was 2 weeks after I finished my degree, I got a telephone telegram in Rome. And first of all, I didn't know the telephone telegrams came by phone. Second of all, I'm in Rome and the girl is talking to me in English. So I was like, wow, this is double weird. So I answer, she goes, is this Chevonne O'Shaughnessy? And I say, yes. And she goes, well, we have a telephone telegram from your father. I'm like, okay. No more monies, was all it said. And all of a sudden I'm sitting there, you think your life is destroyed, it's finished and it's done. And I'm like going, and the wind was knocked out of me. So all of a sudden I sat on my terrace thinking, what am I going to do? How am I going to live? How am I going to do? And crying. Of course, I have to cry at that time. And then I sat back and I said, after a couple of minutes of this, I was like, how much money as a woman can I make in Italy, even though that's where I thought my life was going to be? But now it's been changed, is how much money as a woman can I make in Italy versus how much money as a woman can I make in the United States? And the United States won out. So I remember
Okay.
telling my Italian husband at the time, please sell the apartment. At least dad had bought that and the cars. I'm going to go back to mom's house in Orlando, Florida, and I will get us a job. I'll get myself a job and I'll start working so we can help our family keep moving forward. So I'm in Orlando, back in my mother's house, sleeping in my old room that I grew up on. And my mother was nice enough to take me in. And I'm sitting at the kitchen table writing my resume. And all of a sudden, my mother comes into the room and she's like, Siobhan. And I'm like, she goes, guess what? And I'm like, what, Mom? What's going on? She goes, you won't believe. Universal Studios is opening up in Orlando, Florida.
Mm.
And I'm looking at Mom going, who cares, Mom? Disney World, Circus World, Sea World, every park in the world is in Orlando. Another park, I don't care. And plus, I was a tour guide when I was 16 at Disney World. So I was not thinking parks. I'm thinking import, export. I'm got an international business degree from the American University in Rome. So don't talk to me about parks, Mom. So 3 months I was going to the Chamber of Commerce and I'm trying to talk to all the new import export companies. Nothing was coming. And then all of a sudden, a Chamber of Commerce calls me up and it says the convention sales is coming up. Why don't you apply for the job? Now, I grew up in Orlando, so I knew the streets. But for some reason that day as I'm driving there, I get off on the wrong exit. And the freeways are high. So all of a sudden, as I'm coming off the freeway and coming down, I'm seeing Universal Studios Park. And I hadn't seen it yet. And it's huge and it's beautiful. And God's voice, or whatever you want to call it, is in the car and it's telling me, go in, go in. So I went up to the gate. This poor black man is standing there with a full suit on the Florida heat. And I asked him, where is the employment agency? And this is before cell phone, before MapQuest, before any of this. And he tells me 7 miles out of my way. And if you've been in Orlando, Florida, there was a lot of swamplands. So I'm driving around these swamplands and I'm thinking I'm totally lost and going to myself, what am I doing out here? Why didn't I go to that place? And then all of a sudden a clearing comes and I see the trailer parks and I park the car and I'm literally fighting with myself in the parking lot going, I don't have time to do this. I have to go to this interview. What am I doing here? And literally felt 2 hands pushing me to go forward. And I went into the employment agency and I go up to the counter and I said, I would like to apply for a job. And the guy very nicely turns and says, what would you like to apply for? And this is me, horrible. I don't know. I don't even know why I'm here. So all of a sudden he says, well, why don't you tell me about yourself? And well, then I became the peacock. My little tail goes out, and I'm like, well, my name is Siobhan O'Shaughnessy. I just came back from Rome with an international business degree. I speak Spanish, I speak Italian, and I speak English. And he kind of stops and he goes, you speak Italian? I said, yes, I speak fluent Italian. He goes, well, an independent is using our back lot, and they're making movies, and they went to a market in Italy, and the Italians totally took them. Maybe you should apply there. I applied. 500 other people had applied too. And 2 weeks later, I was sitting at the Cannes Film Festival selling movies to the international world. So it was like a new widget. I didn't know my widget was going to be film, but I was selling import, export, and importing movies. And last week was 35 years ago. I had been at FinCon. So that's all I've done for 35 years. And if God he has a voice, he can push. This is what he wanted me to do.
Absolutely.
So it
So,
came in.
so that was clearly with Universal, not necessarily Christian film. So
No,
where
it
does
was
that
okay. I'll
piece?
tell you, and it wasn't Universal either. That guy was independent using the back lot,
Okay.
and I can tell you that guy did everything wrong. He was from Martin Marietta, the Martin military, and he thought that if he messed around with somebody, it didn't make a difference because there's another 100 behind you, which is not the foreign market anyhow. So I left that company within the first year, and I worked with PM Entertainment from 1989 to 1999, and we were making action movies. The
Oh,
faith base came in when I was single mom raising a daughter, and I'm putting her in front of the TV of Disney Channel, thinking it's Disney, she's really good, and I have to work really hard and so forth, and this is a good channel. And then all of a sudden I started watching the TV channel with her, and I'm like, what? What is this kind of programming? And I said, if I have a voice and I know what my buyers are wanting, and I know, and I want to change things, it was really for my daughter because I felt like those channels and those programs that they were showing her made her start losing herself as a woman and courage than any other programming. So if I wanted to be a voice, I wanted it. And all of a sudden, God gave me a chance to figure that out because I didn't know I was queen of action. I mean, I was crash, boom, bam queen. Um, before, when we made movies, we would put $1 in, we automatically made $3 to $4 back. It wasn't even a question. And that year where I had come up with that idea for doing something different, we were hardly making that dollar back.
oh
And my
no.
partner and I were fighting, of course, because, it's not the same now. How are we going to do this? And some people go to drink, and I went to my first Bible study class. And I met Cindy Bond at that time. And Cindy Bond was in the faith-based market. She had just done a movie called The Ten Commandments,
The
um,
actual movie with Charlton
animation,
Heston? No. Oh.
animation. It was an animation. It was an animation, but it was the Ten Commandments. And it had Christian Slater as voices, Alpha
Oh,
Molino, Ben Kingsley, which was great. And she kept coming to me and saying, Siobhan, will you please sell this for me? And I kept looking at Cindy, go, Cindy, I don't sell this type of movies. I sell action. I do crash, boom, bam. That's who I am. And she goes, please, I haven't had a good experience with other distributors. I would really like if you would take it. So I remember going to my partner and saying, we have a booth. We're at the market. They already know us. We'll put a poster up. We'll have the pictures of Christian Slater, Ben Kingsley, and Alpha Molino. It can't hurt us. So
right.
let's see what we can do. And I can help this girlfriend of mine for my Bible study class. So Cindy had the United States. So that was hers. And then she gave me the world to sell it.
Oh, wow.
I ended up selling every other country except one. And the part that really I was laughing at was the one country I didn't sell was the country I thought I was going to sell first.
Italy.
No,
Oh.
Israel.
Oh. Yeah, you'd
And
think.
what they said, we already know the story.
Mhm.
But I mean, I sold it for Turkey for Ramadan. I sold it to the Middle East. I sold it to China. I sold it to India. I sold it to Singapore. I sold it to Taiwan. I sold it to, I mean, every country in the world got that animation. And it was a new market. And it was exactly what I was trying to do now, good moral values that people can watch together. So again, the Lord has his way of doing things differently, not what I had planned, but he had planned this. And then I went with Cindy and I said, Cindy, we can't just go to market. If we're going to do something, we have to make sure we have content for the buyers if they're going to start so they know they can be guaranteed that we're going to be bringing this kind of product to them.
Right.
And we started that in, I think, 2010. Cindy and I started Mission Pictures, and we got up to 75 faith-based type movies to sell international. And we took on titles like Letters to God, To Save a Life, like Dandelion Dust, October Babies from the Urban Brothers, because at that point, nobody was really in the international market selling those. So we were trying to get new monies for the producers. And we had even created a mission night in South Africa. So every Sunday at 8 o'clock at night, they were watching a mission title. And then we also did something in Mexico. And Mexico gave us a night too. And we had 52 titles they bought, and we had a mission night in Mexico. So we were the trailblazers in these type of movies. And a lot of the titles were Pureflixes before
Oh,
they
wow.
had started their own distribution. However, what we learned as we were growing into this is that a lot of the foreign TV channels won't air the movie if you're bringing in one religion over another.
Mm,
So if you open the Bible and start quoting for it, nobody will take it. So I was going to Pureflix at that time and saying, look, what if we do the following? Instead of being, yes, we can do the religious version, but we could also do one that are seed planters. So
right.
take that same scene that you have with the preacher, but instead of being the preacher, say don't change the music and effects, don't change only the dialogue in the scene we're going to flip out, and just have that same scene with a friend, and then we can put it on the televisions and get a bigger audience. So that's what we were doing, and we created two versions of the same movie to get a wider audience.
And that was mostly international that was complaining about that,
International.
where there was another faith that was predominantly not Christian in a country or something.
It can make a difference. It did make a difference. It could
Oh,
be a
okay.
place where it's very predominantly Christian, but for the TV rules of the countries,
Oh,
in most of the countries, they couldn't promote one religion over another religion.
okay.
So then it had to be more general.
Right.
And so we decided I wanted to be more of a seed planter than a converting.
You know, that's kind
So
of my writing coach. You're familiar with Bob Goff?
no, but
Oh, you'd love his books.
all right.
He's a Christian. He was formerly a lawyer, very
Mhm.
high-end lawyer. He sold his practice for millions, and his first book, Love Does, he opened a bunch of schools for girls in countries where they don't let girls learn. Anyway, he's my writing coach, and the way he writes, he talks about how in his books he doesn't quote a bunch of scripture. He's writing for Joe Mechanic. He wants somebody who he's not writing for other Christians to sit and read in affirmations, although yes, they can from his books. He's writing so that seed, just like you're
It's
saying, it's
planting.
right, because
It's
they're not
planting.
going
Yeah.
to necessarily know off the top of their head, you know, like you start quoting some King James scripture or something like that. And so it's more that lifestyle evangelism, as they used to say. So,
I would say that I'm a lifestyle evangelist in a way.
yeah,
I want to be the seed planter. I want to be with the whole family can sit down and watch a movie together without having to worry that they have to cover the kids' eyes or the bad language the kids are going to hear, that they are safe in a quiet place and enjoying themselves.
right. With a
Disney
good
did a
story,
test.
with good
Yeah.
entertainment and a good story
With
as
good,
well. Yeah.
Disney did a test many years ago, and it basically was testing how people feel when they watch certain things. For example, if you're watching a CSI or investigative, you're calm and you're intuitive because you want to know who did it, right?
Hmm.
If you're watching a horror movie, you're very anxious. You have a lot of anxiety that comes up. But if you're watching a movie, let's say Rocky, that was so popular, and he gets beaten down and then he comes back and he conquers it and he's resilient. Those make you have happy feelings for 2 full weeks. Those are 2 full weeks of happy feelings. So that's what I'm trying to be. I want to be the happy feeling
Happy
company.
feelings. That's awesome. I think, and understanding your audience, mirroring that. So much that's out there right now is contrary to faith-based and to morality. And it's just kind of it feels like it's constantly a battle where it seems like across faiths or even across the secular world, there are certain things that ought to just be unacceptable and acceptable, in my opinion. And happiness seems like one of those things that ought to be able to crest all those things.
Everybody. Yes, everybody. Yes.
So, okay, so then how do we get to American cinema?
American Cinema Inspires. American Cinema Inspires.
Inspires.
We started it. Cindy and I work together now again, but after Mission, she had really wanted to go more the pure flex route that she was trying to convert people. And I said, no, I want to be more the seed planter than just doing the converting. So she went her way, even though we're working now together again. She's wonderful. She did I Can Only Imagine. She did Redeeming Love. I mean, Cindy's the most unbelievable woman I know. But I started right after that American Cinema Inspires. And we're continuing the same type of movies. We take books that are religious, but if you take a book, for example, book has 300 pages, right? A script is about 94 to 95 pages. So no matter what you're doing, you're kind of taking out 200 pages out of a book to make it.
Right.
So what we've learned lately is that we'll come up with the script of 95 pages, and then we have Christian writers who will write the book to make it a Christian book. So I'm not fighting with the principles of what they wanted to write in the book.
Right. Because a lot of
So
people that
it's a win-win. It's a win-win for both of us.
it sounds like a much less a schismed approach, because I see that. I absolutely prefer, before I go see a movie, to like go read the book if it does happen to be based on a book. And I get sometimes what that ends up doing is making us sit there being all critical about how did they not do that or that. But I like to believe that I understand when a lot of a book is inside someone's head. Like I'm writing a book, it's going to get published in September.
Oh,
Um,
congratulations.
Thank you. And it's a memoir and it has a lot of like abuse and different things. And if, for example, my life story were to happen, a lot of it is what's going on inside me with the Holy Spirit and how that healing journey goes. So how do you put that on a screen? You know what I mean? So I try to show grace to the people who put out movies that, yeah, the book may have done this, but a lot of that was inside the main character's head,
Ted. And books have to be a certain pages too. You have to have a book and it has to be at least 300 pages. And I can't go more than 95 because if I'm a TV, that's my time limit. So we
Right.
are kind of fighting each other on that. But that's what our way of helping out that they can do their religious, and I'm not taking something out of their head, which
Sure.
is what you're saying. Yes.
Absolutely. So is the bulk of right now for TV or for streaming, or do you have
Mainly
in theater
streaming and
releases?
TV.
Okay.
I don't, at this moment, I don't have theater releases. I mainly do TV, Hallmark, Up TV. We have also our own YouTube channel, which is called ACI On The Go. We have 655,000 subscribers. And we also have a Spanish one we started. So we have our stuff in Spanish, which is called ACI Siempre Contigo. But our stuff is also on Pluto. Our stuff is also on Tubi, both in Spanish, Canela, and Univision as well, Amazon, Freevee. We're on all the platforms. So you have choices. This is a different choice for you and the family if you want to go to.
And how awesome just to have those choices to begin with. I laugh all the time. I'm older. Well, I'll say mature. How about that? I have people tease me and I'm like, I'm clearly old. I have more years behind me than I have in front of me unless the Lord's going to have me live to 120. But I laugh that when I was a kid, I remember the first controversial commercial I saw. It was for Pepto-Bismol, and this little bespectacled man walks up to a podium and says, I want to talk to you about something, diarrhea, and the world went crazy. That
Mm.
that word got said. And now we're in such an environment where all bets are off, it feels like. They don't mind taking the Lord's name in vain, but they'll bleep out, like maybe the S word versus, like F bombs are aplenty. So I guess my question, even on streaming and the different platforms, is there a lot of opposition? Do you have to run some pretty heavy gauntlets, or is it easier than I would think?
There's always going to be a space for the other stuff. but they really like my space, YouTube and all that, because they are looking. And during COVID, we did really well because we had been lucky enough to put all our films, and we have over 100 of them up there, that the families were looking for that since they were all home together.
Right.
So
Right.
it was good. And we don't have any problems with censorship. I don't have anything that we have to cut out of it. It's really a nice, feel good movies of nice romance. I mean, our target market is 25-year-old woman to 45. 100%.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you know, my writing coach Bob works with a woman named Kimberly Stewart, who's also a writer, and she has, I think, 7 or 8 fiction books that are romantic. I mean, and she's a believer, but her books aren't like scripture laden either. And
Okay, good.
I fell in love with one of them called Sugar, because the main character is a pastry chef and so am I. Absolutely loved it. I was like, this is adorable. This would make a great Hallmark movie. But you know, finding that place, even trying to find agents and publishers right now, when every agent's website I was going on, everybody makes a point to say we are more about DEI, we are more about making sure that unheard voices are out there. And so, you know, it's all a little bit code for, you know, we're not going to go with mainstream, we're not going to go with faith-based per se, we're going to go with some very different directions. So I think it's awesome that you found this. Well, and that's the Lord's handiwork. That's not
Mhm.
not a divine
That-
appointment for you.
yeah. I wish I could say with me, but no, I had a higher power that was with me and really and guided my way 100%, because I couldn't have imagined even doing what it was, just another push and another thing.
Yeah, another Universal Studios.
Another universal, yes. It was, even like I said, meeting Cindy. I had never gone to a Bible study class before. I mean, I didn't tell you, but I'm Catholic. So Catholics, you're not supposed to read the Bible. So you get little missalettes and so on. So when I went to her Bible study class, she would say, go to John's, blah, blah, blah. And I go, okay, do I go to the right or do I go to the left? You help me out here because I don't know.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know. When I was little, it was the Catholic Church. For me, we had some struggles because when my mom divorced my dad after nearly beating her to death, they closed the door in our face. And so I've had
Yes.
kind of a checkered history there. But you know what? Everybody's got their journey. But I think that's funny that you talk about how he put you in that place, and nothing, in my
Yes.
opinion, is a coincidence or an
No.
accident. We just need to be kind of listening or a little more pliant to head in that direction. If you hadn't have gotten out of the car at Universal Studios or taken a different exit, you know, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
At all. I
Yeah.
am with you. Yes.
And I love that you chose
Sure.
a Bible study over going and getting hammered.
Yes. Me too. Me too.
I think the outcome would have been quite different.
I've been doing a lot of dark movies. That's for sure.
Crash Bang Boom might have been less than
Yeah.
a metaphor.
Yeah, that would be been horrible. Yeah.
So, in this industry where you are right now, do you see some things coming? Like, do you see things trending towards a more openness, or what kind of trends do you see in the Christian film space?
I think the Christian film space is really going to have a more of an imprint now. I think, like when you were saying diversity and so forth with the studios or for all the publishers, I think again, everything is pendulum. So everything went in that direction and it had to calm down. I think now people are looking at what are the best way to do things. And somebody asked me what my opinion would be the next thing. I said, I think that a lot of Western movies are going to come back in.
Oh
I
yeah,
think a lot of romances, but at the same time, we need to get the men back
Mm,
into the storyline. We got us girls in there, but now we got to get the men. And the Westerns have all the elements
yeah.
that empowerment. We got to make the men feel the
Like
providers
men
for
again.
us, the men that there are. And those Westerns with John Wayne and so forth really emphasize that. So that's what I think will be coming about. And I think the men really need it.
Well, I think the response to is it 1923 from Yellowstone? I don't know if you
Oh,
watched.
yes,
So yeah,
I did.
but I think the response to that, and isn't there another one with um, Faith Hill and and Tim McGraw that's another year, 18 something or whatever. But anyway,
Yeah.
in that series, you see such a good response to all of that that I couldn't agree more. I think in society is starving for men to get to have a men's role. I
Yes,
saw
they're
an
missing it.
ad. I saw an ad the other day for a show, and this woman says to this guy in there, I shouldn't have sent a boy to do a woman's job. And I just thought, why on earth would any grown man want to be in a show where somebody that was how he was going to end up being portrayed? But there's a lot of that. There's a lot of shows, and I'm not saying women can't be powerful and be in leadership, but there's a lot of shows where they're really portraying the men not just as usurping the leadership or handing it over, but has making them look like absolute ridiculous, kind of incapable. And I just think we're starving for that. And I think men would be, like you said, just incredibly receptive to the possibility of being able to see something that's more inspiring to them than what's currently being on the table. That's for sure.
And the reason what you just said, why it happened was, I think the marketers looked at the person at the house at the end of the day was the woman who was controlling the remote control.
Right.
So then if it's the woman who's controlling the remote control, they wanted to start seeing themselves as these real, people that we became men. At the
Yeah.
end of the day, we were becoming men instead of letting men do their jobs. And I think the younger generation of kids are so lost because they don't know what that role is anymore. It feels like we're everything and we don't know how to be everything. I mean, the men they are so amazing. They are so amazing in what they do. And if we put us together in each one of our little positions, and I'm not saying just to us to cook as women, no,
Right.
we don't have to
Right.
just cook. But we let them, they focus so well on things. I mean, my husband, he could sit for an hour and concentrate. I mean, if I couldn't, I would have to go get the kids. I would have to go do this. I have to, my brain is thinking three, four things, and they're unbelievably how they can focus on things and get it done and just want to be our heroes. That's all
Be,
men want to be.
be
They
our
want to be
heroes and build
our
things.
heroes for us and just provide for us and be that person and they want to be honored. They really want to be honored. And I don't think we're honoring them anymore.
And who doesn't? I mean, for so many years, everybody wanted to say nobody's thanking moms and nobody's taking being a housewife or a mom seriously or this and that. And I think we beat that all up. I mean, I think that at the end of the day, men like to build things. We wouldn't have roads and we wouldn't have electric lines and we wouldn't have
Sure.
trains running across the country and what have you, if it weren't for them. And then they like to get in and fix things when they break too. And you can sit there and say women and men can do exactly the same things, but there's not a lot of women who step up and want to do that. Even if
Why?
you're wanting to
Why?
be paid a lot, who wants to do that? I'm thrilled with men.
Yeah, but you know what I find with the younger generation, the man who comes up and let's say you're coming off the airplane and you're just getting your luggage, okay? And the man turns to you and says, "Can I get that for you?" And instead of saying yes and then say thank you, I find the younger generation saying, "No, I can do it by myself."
Yeah.
And I'm like, why did you just take that really good feeling that he wanted to do something for you away from him and say, like, you can't do it? We know you can do it, but let him get that little,
Right. And why does that make any
yeah,
less of you to let, I
yeah,
mean,
it
why?
doesn't.
Why? I mean, I
Right.
have, and I do see a trend, which I think is interesting, of a lot of young men stopping now and holding a door open and waiting a few seconds for me to go ahead and make it in and stuff. And I don't even, I watched, I was sitting at a restaurant the other day and I'm single. And again, I'd like to date if the
Yeah.
Lord has someone for me. And this very attractive older man, salt and pepper hair, was walking and he caught my eye. So I'm like looking at him, I was waiting for my daughter. And he caught my eye and I'm looking at him. Well, the next thing I know, mom and the daughter catch up and he heads into the door of the restaurant and he just kind of shoves it back at them. And I get sometimes when you're married for a while, whatever, but I'm thinking it was Mother's Day on top of it.
No.
And why he didn't just stop there and like let the daughter and and I was kind of like, oh, he may as well be dead to me now. I'm like, you just ruined it for me. But
Um,
you're right. But I get it because a lot of what's been happening, a lot of movies, a lot of television programs, just a lot of conversation has emasculated men and made it sound like all of us women. And I don't believe that's true at all. In fact, I think the majority of women are fine, not making equal for what, if what you do is equal, but for being able to be rewarded for whatever our individual skill sets are and not have to shove other people down of any sex to get
Exactly.
somewhere.
I agree. I just, the bad people, they're bad, got all the media attention, and they did some really horrible things. But not all men are this. I
No.
mean, there is a group of them that took advantage of it, but let's let's honor them because they're
Yeah.
wonderful, wonderful men.
Not all anybody is anything. Do you know what I
I
mean?
know. Yes.
I've had a lot of bad male situations my entire life from my biological father who beat me. I do not think that every man is going to act like that. I think, we're all created by God and we all have the propensity to have a sin nature and do good things or do bad things. And so I think if we just give one another the opportunity to do the right thing and do the good thing, I think it will be pleasantly shocked.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
So in this lovely lifetime of this new opportunity that God presented you, what would be your most memorable either movie or situation, like turn of events for you?
Well, I learned a lot when I started with Cindy and we started doing these type of movies. First we were just a distributor on other people's movies, and then we decided we wanted to get into production ourselves. And the first time even though I've done 150 movies produced and distributed, when I went to the US channels, because that was who was buying the most at that time, and I went to Hallmark and I'm showing her a script that I think is going to be great for her. And she's looking at me and she goes, "Well, what are you bringing to me that's different than what I have?" And I remember looking at her going, "Me? Me? I mean, I'm not Hallmark. I'm just a producer." And she goes, "Well, I have producers. So why would I hire you? Yes, you've done 1050, but we have people that are making them as well." And I remember walking out of that meeting going, "Oh my gosh, isn't it as easy I thought this was going to be?" So then I sat back and I said, "Okay, what way could I find something that Hallmark would consider?" And I remember saying, "I don't have the cast, so maybe I'll go to books." So I found, do you remember Guidepost? Guidepost is like the Reader's
Yeah,
Digest that you
yeah.
used to go find. Well, I found Guidepost, and they had a series of books called Love Finds You.
Oh, I
I
remember
had
that.
read the series of books. I read most all of them. There are 50 of them. And they were stories of women that something happened to them in their lifetime. I don't know if it was a mother dying, maybe a boyfriend leaving, or their job. But the heart of the story was that basically the woman had lost something of herself. And this story basically helps her find love. It helps her find community. It helps her find her place of what she's supposed to be. So it was inspiring. There weren't that many locations. There weren't that many characters. I didn't have sci-fi visual that I had to worry about. So I went to them and I got the rights to the books. So I'm going back to Hallmark and I'm saying, check, check, check. So I sit back down with them and I say, "Look, I got these series of books. There's 50. So it's not like it's a one-off. We got 50 different movies we can do afterwards. And it has a newsletter that it goes out to 5 million different people. Their age group is 50 and above. That's what your channel is mainly." And they still said no to me. So then all of a sudden they said no. So then I had an opportunity with Up TV. And I don't know if you remember back in the 90s or maybe it was 2000. Sorry, it's 2000. Up TV used to be called the Gospel Music Channel.
Oh,
And they went from Gospel Music Channel to Up TV. And their market was 50 and above year woman too, but Christian. So we went to them and we told them our books that we had and we gave them the first script. And they were nice enough to give us our first in. And we were like, "Oh my gosh, this is great. We're finally into the TV channels now. And we made the first one. And now we're in post. And all of a sudden, the girl at the channel calls me up and says, "You know what? We just had a meeting and we've decided we don't want to hit the 50-year-olds anymore. We want to target now the 25 to 45-year-olds." I'm going, you're gonna start changing to 25 to 45, that's not your market. Your market is 15 and above. Well, the advertiser decided, the 50-year-olds and above already have their toothpaste, they already have their detergent. We can't convince them to change, and we want to get the 25-year-olds so we can get that new toothpaste or detergent into their homes. And that's what we're going to start hitting.
So irrelevant or irrespective of content.
No, it's advertising. So I'm sitting on the plane, and again, it's one of those Jesus moments going, oh, what do I do? What do I do? I have the first book, and if I don't do well, I've just lost another 50 books that I could do afterwards. And I'm sat back and I started breathing very calmly, and I said, okay, show me where you think I can go. Show me what you think I can go now, because I really want this to be a success. And he got kind of talked to me, and he said, well, what's the name of your movie, Siobhan? And I said, my movie's called Love Finds You. And then all of a sudden it was like another voice saying to me, well, hit all the dating sites. That's 25 to 45-year-old women. And I did. I hit Match.com, Christian Mingle, JDate, anything that had a date or a Match.com, I was on it. And at that time, you could put little sleeves around the dating sites, that you could. So our movie was on all these dating sites. And then we also had the Christian bookstores. We knew how to really get to each one of the people that we knew would be wanting to watch this movie. So we called up the channel really well, and we called them up and we say, Brad, we think we're going to do 2 million views on this movie. And Brad starts laughing. I started, Siobhan, let me explain to you my channel. Our highest rated movie to date has been on Easter, Passion of the Christ. Do you really think you're going to beat Jesus?
He has a point.
You don't know what to say after that. You're kind of going, oh my gosh, I don't know what I was thinking in a way. How could I even think of it? Yeah,
I'm going to let Match.com beat Jesus.
Yeah. So all of a sudden it aired. Not that I'm trying to say I beat Jesus, but we did 7.4 million views. And out of that 7 million views, we had 1.5, almost 2 million of that 25 to 45-year-old women that they had never gotten before because of the Match.com. But again, the nice thing is, if you do a nice content, the Christian market is there. They'll support you. The Academy Awards could be on. It doesn't make a difference what movie is really on or what's even playing theatrically. They will support it if it's what they know is real for them. So they all showed up and everybody came, and then Up TV thought, oh, it's a one-off. It can happen again. It was anomaly. And we made Love Finds You in Charm. We had 7.4 million views. And then we did Love Finds You in Valentine. And we did 7.7 million views because it was a Valentine's Day one. And then, of course, management changes, new people come in, and they want to bring in their old people. So they didn't make any more of those anymore. But then Hallmark starts calling me and says, we want one of your movies. We want you to know you did these Amish movies. Can you send us one? So then I send one to Hallmark thinking it's perfect. And they're not calling me back. Crickets. I'm like, what's going on? Why isn't Hallmark calling me back? So then I start watching Hallmark 24/7. And, each page is a minute. So I'm going, at this minute, this is happening. I got it. At this part, the guy comes back, or he comes back and falls in love, or the family's there. I mean, each formula I had in the script. So I'm like, why aren't they calling me back? And as I watched the channel more and more, I finally realized their main advertiser was Petco. And I added a scene with the dog. Not a big scene, literally, not a big scene. It was, they found a stray. They bring it home, they feed the dog, and then they take it to the dog. That was it. And they call me back.
That is ridiculous.
And
that
I
is
said to them,
crazy.
Why didn't you just tell me? And she goes, well, if you want to be on our channel, you should know what we want.
Do your research. Wow. And who would go to those links? How awesome that you stopped and thought, okay, I'm going to look at the algorithm for this and figure it out, because who else would have done that? That would have been mind numbing I feel bad enough for my producer for my podcast that he has to listen to every episode, every minute of it in order to do the editing.
But
He's a young
it's
guy.
movies are formulated, no matter what. It's an action movie, it's formulated. This has to happen. There's an action scene, a running scene, or whatever has to happen. So I was kind of used to the formula. So I knew that part. And Hallmark, it's the same formula. Even my partner used to say, Siobhan, this is the same movie over and over again. And I'm like, yes, but we like it. And your Westerns sometimes are the same over and over again, and you all like it. So let's not fight the system. Let's just play with the system.
Don't argue with it.
Don't argue with it. Just do it.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Now that's gonna happen when I watch stuff. I'm gonna be like, okay, because I do watch certain things and think, oh,
Yeah.
this just seems like Hallmark in particular. Like this just
Yes.
seems like a regurgitated. They took Christmas and put it on Easter with the same kind of love story line or whatever, you know. That's awesome. So one of the things I do every time I have a podcast guest on
Yes.
is I ask them for a nugget. I ask them what is one thing, and the more mature we are, the more we have. But if you can come up with one, at least, if you have a couple, that's fine, that you wish you knew sooner or that someone had told you sooner.
I wish somebody had told me sooner how structured the TV channels were. For example, I came from the video market. And the video market, when I first started, was mom and pops. So they were shelf space and they just needed it. So it was almost anybody could get into the market. And then when it came to the TV, it was really hard. It was really hard to even be acknowledged as a producer to get into being able to do what I did and be with a domestic. I wish I had somebody that guided me a little bit more than I had.
And would you honestly say that was that impacted by the fact that you were female, or it was just how it was done regardless of that?
I think it was being female. It was, I wasn't in the right groups. I wasn't in the right companies. We were independent.
Okay.
When you work for the studios, they give you a lot, or a person coming off of them. When you're an independent, you're doing everything. You're
Right.
doing the marketing, you're doing the selling, you're doing so it, and people form groups, and we were not in the group of everybody else, I would say.
Right. That makes sense. And that sounds kind of familiar to like a lot of industries, like the music industry, or when I have been, like I said, I was looking for agents and different things, and they want people who it's the old story, you got to have money to make money or to get money. And so they want you to have already done X, Y, or Z, and yet this is my first book. So how do I get past that? And they're like, not my
Exactly.
problem.
Very true. Very true. This is you to figure it out. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay. Yes.
Well, you are a delight. And I think I could listen to your stories all day long because it just seems so fun. And I just love your whole demeanor about it, your whole thought process, your understanding that, this was the Lord kind of showing you the way as you were going. And, there aren't always mentors or coaches or this or that are around. Sometimes we are kind of, we're not alone. I think we have the Holy Spirit. I think we have guidance, but to be able to go through those processes and come out smiling that you have gotten all of this accomplished, and that that it wasn't solely at your own hand, that you had some divine appointments, but still, what a lovely human you are. What a great what you bring to the world. I can't wait to go watch some of your programs, and I love that there's so much of it available out there. I agree with you. I think people are starving for something that isn't as oppressive as the current news. I don't think we were created to handle all of what's going on in the world, because we can barely manage our little family unit and our little arena around us, our Jerusalem, if you will. And to have to sit there and think, well, what can I do for, what's going on in the war in Israel or going on over here? And you just feel overwhelmed, and it can be so depressing. And I love that you bring entertainment with a morally upright foundation, and that you do it with such joy.
Thanks. I love what I do. Like I said,
It
I've been doing it
shows.
for 35 years and I get up, woohoo.
That's awesome. I, on the other hand, just get up. Woohoo! I'm glad I got up. I thank Jesus every day. Thank you for waking me up.
I'm up.
Well, you are a delight, hun, and I will let you know and your people know when the episode is going to come out.
Okay.
I don't believe you have a specific movie or something coming out that I need to get you
Nope,
on the
just the
schedule.
channels, just the
Okay.
channels in the movie and the company that they can look up and find all of it. We do have some new Amish movies that we're going to be doing this year, which are called the Sugar Creek Amish Mysteries from Guidepost.
Oh, how fun.
Um, yeah, it's gonna be very fun. And then we're doing another one, a kind of a fun racing one, but honoring men by the same time, but it's for girls. It's instead of men racing cars, we got our female racing cars.
Okay.
And we're gonna be shooting that down in Brazil. So it's a fun action one. And the uncle's a preacher, and of course there's some moral lessons to learn on understanding and forgiveness and so forth, but it's all in good times.
Good. Well, we'll get everybody driven over to at least the YouTube channel, at the very least, to be subscribers, and so they can kind of see what's coming up.
ACI on the go.
Okay.
There you go.
Thank you,
Okay.
hon. Pleasure
Thank you.
meeting you. You
Thanks.
have a great day. I want to thank you all for coming to class today, and please, by all means, head over to YouTube and subscribe to American Cinema Inspires, and you'll be able to take a look at all of the titles they have over there and be able to kind of see what's coming up. She talks about in this episode some of the trends and some of the things they have coming, so you can get over there and find out what's going on and what's new and what's upcoming. You can connect through the show notes, through my connections if you'd like. I'd love it if you came to all your favorite platforms and rate, review, download, subscribe, hit that notification so you know when a new one comes out. And I'd really be thrilled to engage with you and have your feedback. So I want to thank you all for coming to class, and class dismissed. This episode of Old School with Michele Vrabel is brought to you by The Lathered Crown, a hair and scalp spa here in the Phoenix area.